here on my channel. I'm hoping we have sound for this time. I thought I would jump on this afternoon just real quick and share my thoughts about what's been happening in Tumblr Ridge, British Columbia yesterday with their mass shooting. Tumblr Ridge is a place that I'm familiar with. I grew up not too far away from there, just a couple hours away in Fort St. John, BC. And although Fort St. John is much bigger than Tumblr Ridge, it's a very similar lifestyle, similar type of people that work there, industry, those sorts of things. Tumblr Ridge was a coal mining community at one point, very prosperous that way. And then things closed and people had to move around, and they've seen a lot of transition and change over the years. And it's not an easy place to make a living or to raise children. Being in a very small rural community, you don't have access to a lot of the resources and things that you would in a larger center. So just coming from that perspective of kind of knowing the environment and the people, and I just thought I'd jump on because, well, it's ridiculously terrible, right? Like there's no words to explain to anyone. I mean, I had to talk to my kids today, my student kids, but my own children kids, about this. And there's just so many challenging conversations to be had. How can you justify this? And when I think about it, I mean, it's tragic, and you're looking at the numbers. Most sources are reporting 9 fatalities. I have seen 2 or 3 that have reported 10. Whether it's 9 or 10, it's too many. And then 25 injured. The average age of the children who were killed were 12 and 13. That's the same age as my baby. And when he realized that this morning when we were talking about it, I could tell. It really hit him. Teenagers should still feel immortal. They should feel like they're untouchable. Like that's how it should be. They shouldn't feel like, oh God, this could happen to me, right? And so then the questions were, well, what would we do? What would happen? You know, will they still leave the school? And so we had some good conversations about that today on the way to and from school. When I heard the size of the school, that's when it really, really hit me hard. Less than 170 students. So that's not a big school. 9 or 10 fatalities. Now we know 2 were in another environment, but we're still multiple fatalities in a school that size. And then that many injured. 25 people, that's not a class anymore. Classes are bigger, but in a community that size, that's mostly a class size, right? That's devastating. It's just, as a teacher and just looking around my own building, and I'm in a busy building with 1,000 kids, right? It's a different environment, but I've taught in small rural schools, right? And my heart is broken for these families, these teachers, these students who had to survive all of this. And, you know, I'm just going to pray for them as they put one foot in front of the other for the next few days, because really, honestly, survival is all you can do emotionally at this point, I'm sure. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, I keep using that word, but I don't have any better word. Seeing the photos of these young people. My sister, who works in healthcare in Vancouver, said that they got an orange alert when it happened. And an orange alert is like a severe casualty, mass casualty thing. And she said that in all of her years working as a teacher in medicine, she's never seen that alert come out in BC other than, she thinks, maybe once. But it's not common that they would put the province, you know, on alert medically. You know, the ripple effect, you know, and then you're watching and you're waiting and you're listening to see if there's people you know, because there's people I know up there. And thankfully I'm not aware of anybody who's passed away that I personally know, but friends of friends of friends. I mean, it's a small world, and it's just beyond comprehensible. But the part that's bothering me today and why I jumped on the live is because of the reporting that the shooter is trans. Could be true. I've seen one verified report where they said the shooter was born male, identified female. And there was some language in the paragraph about the transition had been going on for multiple years, had been supported by family and school. And so I think it might be fair to say, yes, that the shooter was probably a trans individual. But why does that matter? So I was kind of unpacking that in my brain as I've been looking at the comments and trying not to get sucked into like keyboard warrioring myself, because this is an issue that's close to my heart. I have a child who is trans, also male to female transition. I teach children who are trans. Right now I can think of 2 out of 1,000 kids. But in my career, I think I've taught a handful of children who identify as trans at the school age. Maybe, I think the number I've settled on is 7 out of 25 years of teaching. So 7. And you have to understand, this year I only see 450 kids every 2 days. Some years I see 600. So I see thousands of kids in my 25 years of teaching, and I can think of 7 children who I know identified as trans growing up. And so I was like, okay, I'm in Canada. I'm speaking here in the province of Alberta. I grew up in British Columbia, where this tragedy happened, only a couple hours away from where the school shooting was. And so I was thinking about some of the issues and challenges my trans students faced compared to children who were cisgendered. Well, access to medical care is a big one. So speaking from my experience watching my own child go through this as a teenager, you know how hard it is as a teenager to figure out who you are to begin with? Then put yourself in the shoes of somebody whose body doesn't match their identity, right? That's got to be stressful. And so I remember my child struggling with depression. And it showed itself in many different ways, in hygiene issues and how they dressed, and then the lack of social interaction. And they just became really isolated over the years. But once they came out as publicly as, well, they started I'm non-binary, and then they came out as trans, I can't say enough good things. I got my child back. I mean, there were times during my child's teenage years, I was concerned that they might unalive themselves before graduation. We watched them closely, and it was hard. It was heartbreaking to watch my child struggle this much. And then my child accepted who they were, because I don't think that transitioning is becoming something new. I think it's accepting who you are and simply becoming yourself. And because that's what I've seen. That is exactly what I see. And so once my child came out, the depression issues were gone for the most part. I mean, there's some seasonal stuff we all deal with. Their body image issues, they're happy. I get photos, I get stories of their life. They're happy, they're well adjusted, right? I'm watching a couple of students now who are going through, not transition, because I don't actually know any of those 7 names, or 7, not names, 7 students I talked about. None of them were actively transitioning when I knew them, but they were identifying, right? So there was no medical interventions or that, but they may have chosen to dress so that they presented as the gender they identified with. My child didn't do that until after high school. But now that they do, she's beautiful, and I'm proud of her. And, of course I'm proud of my children. I love my daughter. But my students I'm watching right now who are sort of, going through that process of figuring themselves out, and I'm just a fly on the wall. Like, there's no interaction about it. I don't talk to my kids about that. I just kind of watch. And I've seen some of the same things, the depression and the social anxiety and the isolation. Once they start to dress as they feel as they are, as they want to present how they are, a lot of that goes away. They become happy and focused and able to learn again. And, I'm just thinking of one specific individual I have right now, and she's just an amazing human, and was amazing before, but was an amazing struggling human before, and now is an amazing flourishing human. And that's ideal, right? We want our kids to flourish. And so I'm thinking about some of the barriers that a trans individual would face, other than, the comments we expect, like 2 genders only. So go to science class and actually do some research, because that is highly oversimplified. But nonetheless, in the province of BC, I'm in Alberta, and trans care in Alberta sucks. It sucks ducks. There's no other way to describe it, and it's getting worse. And the province is using the notwithstanding clause to limit access to gender affirming care and things. BC is a little more progressive. BC has not rolled back the clock to the 1900s. It's moving forward, but in a rural community where you don't even have a hospital, right? We're talking like urgent care centers. Do you think you're going to have specialists? No, absolutely not. So I did some quick research just to see where the nearest gender affirming care was, and it was Prince George and then Vancouver. Tumblr Ridge is way up near the Alberta border, near Grand Prairie, right? Prince George is sort of in the middle, like we're talking 7-8 hours by car away, maybe more. And then Vancouver's about 20 hours away by car. It's way across the province down by the Pacific Ocean. So if you are a human who needs gender affirming care, finding it locally, especially in a rural community, is going to be impossible. Like it's just non-existent. You're going to find practitioners and general doctors who support you, but you're not going to have specialists. And I know nothing nothing about the shooter's background. All I know is that the news is reporting that they were born male and identified female. And from the photos, they appear to be female. Beautiful. Good for them. But I was thinking, okay, that's not a reason. That's not a reason. So if you're going to say, oh, they were a shooter because they were trans, you can just go away, because that's not even what's happening, right? Now, would a person who is trans, possibly have more struggles with their mental health as a result of lack of access to care that cisgendered humans would have access more easily to? Absolutely. So there's a lot of little factors in place that are going to make the problem worse. And from the anecdotal things I've heard, it sounds like the family and the teachers were trying to support this child through this transition. And so good for them. And I'm concerned about the whole transphobic piece, right? Because it could be a piece of the puzzle. Like, I'm not saying that because you're trans that you don't have struggles that other people don't have, that this would lead to more, more challenges and barriers for you. This could manifest in severe mental health issues that could lead to these other things, right? Absolutely. It's a factor. But this person didn't go out and become a shooter because they're trans. It's irrelevant. Statistically, I believe that it was like 0.44%, like less than even 0.5% of individuals who are trans commit violent crimes with guns. And the states are where I'm getting my data from, because Canada doesn't keep gender-related data when it comes to violent crimes, apparently. At least not nearly as closely as the states did. So that's where I found my research or my numbers from. And within Canada, though, in BC, they have a higher number of people who identify as trans on their what do you call it? It's not censorship, wrong word. You know when they go door to door and they find out who everyone lives? Oh my God, that word's leaving my brain right now. But they have a larger population that identifies that way. And even so, it's less than 3% of the general population. So we're talking about a small group of people who need some highly specialized care that just simply isn't available to them in the communities they live in. That doesn't make them more likely to commit a crime than a cisgendered male or a cisgendered female. Statistically, it's males who are more violent than women, if we look at the statistics in crimes. And I'm not even going to dig into why that is. My concern is the people who go, oh, but not all men, are the people who are not going, but not all trans people. Because if that's what you're going to do, then you're a hypocrite. Because if it's not all men who are violent, then it's not all women who are violent. And it's not all trans people who are violent, right? You can't group a whole group of people together for one behavior based on something like that, an identifying feature. It's just ridiculous. And so I just wanted to stop on and say, if you're one of those people, I'm sorry you're that miserable. And for those of us who are loving people who are trans, this is hard on our hearts, right? I mean, I can even see in the comments right here, I've got a gentleman with a lovely name, White King, all hail, what the actual, who's like just filling up my comment section. Go pop in here, my friends, because like, dude, this is why I'm saying this. It's not an opinion. It's fact, right? Like, more men commit violent crimes than women. More women commit violent crimes than trans individuals. It's just statistic. So correlation and causation are not a case here. It's like the pickle statistic, my favorite, right? 100% of people who eat pickles die. It's a fact. It's true. But it's not relevant. Causation and correlation are not necessarily combined. And so this case, we've got an individual who is trans, according to the media, who has committed a violent crime, allegedly, according to the media and the police. Yeah, that doesn't mean that all people who are trans are likely to be violent. I think people get caught up in the wrong argument a lot of the time, because what you're really concerned about are people who are violent and predators. And I don't think that has to have a gender assigned to it, right? I'm definitely concerned about somebody who comes into a bathroom who wants to harm me. Whether they're men, women, trans, that would concern me. We're concerned about predators, right? We're concerned about people with violent tendencies. That isn't necessarily gender specific. And if you want to look at the data and make it gender specific, then it's the men who tend to be the problem, but not all men. And you're not hearing me say that, because it's not all men, it's not all women, and it's not all trans. And at the end of the day, we can look for reasons, right? Because that's what we need to do. We need to unpack this so that we can be better in the future, right? But the states have given us enough case studies, and the research is there, and there are always signs. School shootings don't just happen, right? The fact that there's another piece, that there's a secondary crime scene with this one, and sort of a family annihilator aspect to it, that makes me think about this in a little bit of a different light, because a lot of the impulses are like when homicidal impulsive and suicidal impulses are the same when you look at how the brain operates. And so interesting, right? Just something to think about. Did it start at the home and then move to the school? Did it start at the school and then move to the home? I think it's the other way around, because I believe the shooter was found at the school. There's so much for a psychologist to pull apart here, and I'm not, right? I'm just a teacher. I'm just a mom. I'm just somebody who, loves a couple of people who happen to be trans very much, and really hate when it's the all thrown into it, right? Some of you are like, the Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Okay, that's why I'm saying this, because all lives matter, because all perspectives matter, because all genders matter. And because just because you are one or the other doesn't mean you're more likely to be violent, be predatory, and be those, things we don't want in society. And so I think there's going to be a lot to unpack here as we move forward, but at the end of the day, my heart just goes out to the victims and the families. And, I've got friends of friends that this hits close to home for me, as the pictures start to arrive, and I'm like, oh, they're so young. And I'm sure we're all having those responses to it. Right. And it hurts my heart to see more hate thrown onto a situation where what we need to be pouring on is love and compassion and support. And if you want to look at the issues behind trans care and those sorts of things and the inadequacies that are available, that's a whole nother conversation that I think needs to be had. And I'm hoping that those are some things that are addressed moving forward. But it's not a simple solution. Medical care in Alberta and BC in rural parts is really hard to get, right? We just don't have the doctors. We don't have the specialists, right? We don't have the mental health supports, right? It's significantly higher rates of, depression and things in areas where you don't have supports. And so I think, just like anything, as I say in many things, we need to stop pulling people out of the river and start going up and finding out where they're falling in, right? Like, we can't just keep saving people all the time, right? Because sometimes we don't get there in time to save them. And that's what happened in this case, right? There's always signs. There's always things that happen before it escalates to the point of a shooting. The research supports that. And the reporting says that, people were trying to support this child through whatever they were going through. But the supports weren't there. Right. So at some point, I think those gaps are where we really need to focus on our energy, because we can't change what's happened as much as we'd love to. We can't bring people back. We can't. So moving forward, what do we do so that we don't see more of this? Right? Canada has done really well with not having these incidents happen. And I don't want to see this continue, this trend that the States has, right? The fact they have mass shootings so often that it's just news, right? Like, that's not how this is. These are 25 people who were injured, 9 or 10, depending on the different sources, are no longer with us. And at the end of the day, that's heartbreaking, right? So, I don't have more to say on the issue. I just wanted to pop on and lend my support to those out there who might be feeling discriminated against a little bit more than usual today, and tell you that I see you as you are. I love you as you are. And my wish is that every human, not just children, every human has the mental health supports that they need to be safe and healthy and have a productive life. And that this tragedy gives us something good out of it, that we learn something in a way that we can actually make some positive change. And my prayers, like just so many prayers for everyone in Tumblr Ridge right now, because a community that size, a school of over 160 kids, that's it. We're talking 25 injured, 9 dead. Oh my gosh, my heart. And I really hope that they get the supports they need, and that's long-term, because, after the funerals, after things start to settle, this is still their reality, right? They still have to pick up the pieces and keep going. And so I wish them strength and courage on their journey, and sending love to all. And I'm going to sign off. Thank you.